We will begin with the flag salute.
We have Vivian Rodriguez here with us tonight for translation. Vivian?
Sí, muy buenas noches y bienvenidos de parte de la Junta Directiva del Distrito Escolar de Santa Bárbara. Si hay alguien que necesita ayuda, por favor levante la mano para darle un audífono. Gracias. Thank you.
I'd like to also point out that we have headsets available for the hearing impaired. If anyone needs them, please let us know, and they will be provided. And it's noted up on the screen. Okay. Introductions, proclamations, presentations, or recognitions?
Good. Thank you, President Cordero. Is this on? Yes? Okay. Thank you. Well, tonight we do have some wonderful presentations. We have some great students with us who have been participants in the National Merit Scholarship Program, which is an academic competition. Students enter the program by taking the preliminary SAT National Merit Scholarship qualifying test no later than their junior year. Of the 1.5 million entrants, approximately 50,000 with the highest PSAT, NMSQT, great letters, scores qualify for the National Merit Scholarship Program, or for recognition in the program. In September of their senior year, the high scorers are notified that they have qualified as either a commended student or semifinalist, and to be considered for a National Merit Scholarship, semifinalists must advance to the finalist standing by meeting high academic standards and other requirements. Finalists are considered for one of three types of merit scholarship award: a national merit, $2,500 scholarship, corporate-sponsored, or college-sponsored merit scholarship awards. The following students are our district's National Merit Scholarship Program finalists. From San Marcos High School, we have Isabel Fendley. Isabel, would you please come forward? Isabel will attend McGill University in Quebec, Canada, and major in physics. Isabel. Good. And from Dos Pueblos High School, Jeff Campbell will attend Duke University and major in political science. Jeff? Other students from Dos Pueblos High School, Richard Cheng will attend Princeton and anticipates majoring in engineering. Richard is also the recipient of a $2,500 National Merit Scholarship Award. Richard? Patrick Holmes will attend UC Berkeley and major in mechanical engineering. Patrick. Corrine Ruth will attend Yale and major in cognitive science. QC Tran will attend UCLA and major in aerospace engineering. QC. And I believe I have all of the students. We had some students who weren't going to be here tonight, but just in case, Addison Clark. Nope. Addison's here. All right, excellent. Addison will attend UC Berkeley, and though undeclared, may be majoring in engineering. Is that right? Great. And Noah Conley? No, Noah Conley is not with us tonight. Noah Conley will be going to Yale. And Elon Goodman, no Elon Goodman tonight, will attend Stanford and plans to double major in physics and math. Well, congratulations, students. I know the board will have some words for you as well. Here, why don't you come over here so that you can face the board and hear from them.
Well, on behalf of the board, I'd just like to say we are extremely proud of you and your accomplishments. You certainly do our district proud in the work that you do and in the future endeavors that you are going to be pursuing. I know that you don't do this on your own, and so I'd like to acknowledge parents who are in the audience, because students of this caliber usually get a great deal of support from their parents and family members, and that's how they manage to succeed at such a high level. So I'd like to acknowledge the parents. Thank you very much. And if you'd like to stand, we would. Are the parents too shy to stand? And also the teachers and administrators at your schools who have also contributed to your success. Thank you very, very much, and thank you to the school staff. Just a reminder that our meetings are televised on Saturdays at 5 o'clock on Channel 18. So if you would like to see yourself on TV, you can tune in. Thank you very much, and congratulations, and great wishes for great success in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, students. Congratulations. Go work hard. Make us proud. Didn't need to say that, did I?
And Dr. Sarvis, as soon as you take your seat, we will continue with the superintendent's report.
Good. First, we have one more introduction, which is that La Colina Junior High Assistant Principal Lito Garcia has been named Santa Barbara Junior High's new principal. Lito, would you like? 30 years ago, Lito was a 7th grader at the school, and he is enthusiastic about returning to his alma mater. Lito began teaching at Santa Maria in 1993 as a history teacher, then began work at La Colina Junior High shortly thereafter. He soon became the AVID, Advancement Via Individual Determination Coordinator, a position he held for the next 6 years. And in July 2001, he moved into the assistant principal position at La Colina. While they are sorry to see him go, and I've talked to a number of the staff members at La Colina, we are pleased to have Lito Garcia take over the helm at Santa Barbara Junior High. Lito?
Thank you. I want to thank the board and Dr. Sarvis for this opportunity to take the lead at Santa Barbara Junior High. And as Dr. Sarvis mentioned, for the last 17 years, I've had the honor and privilege of working with a tremendous staff at La Colina. And first and foremost, David Ortiz. He's been an amazing mentor to me and friend. Today I had the opportunity to go to Santa Barbara Junior High and meet the staff there, and I told them that the teachers at La Colina have been coming up to me left and right and just singing their praises. And I am looking forward to the opportunity to be able to work with the Santa Barbara Junior High staff, because they are truly dedicated and a hardworking group of people. So it's very exciting for me, and yes, to be able to walk those halls again, it's going to be good times. So thank you for the opportunity. Really appreciate it.
Well, I just want to say congratulations. Thank you. I'm afraid it was a little more than 30 years ago that I walked those halls, but I walked them into your father's classroom. So
Yes.
It's great to have you there, and I am really looking forward to your stewardship at the school. You follow in footsteps that are hard to fill, but
Yes.
we look forward to your tenure there. It'll be great, and it's always nice to come back again, right?
It is. It is. Yes, thank you.
All right. And with that, I will continue with the superintendent's report. Well, graduations and promotions take place next week. The schedule indicating which senior award event and high school graduation each board member will be attending has been provided to the board, so everyone knows where they're going to be, especially on the day, oh, well, actually, you're busy the day of June 2nd, but the evening, the afternoon and evening of June 2nd, great. And now that the state ranks and similar school ranks are in, the information has been posted in Excellence for All. You know, we wait almost all year to get that thing published because we wait for these state ranks and similar school ranks. The final report for 2010-11 is posted on our website and has been distributed en masse. Following the recent 2011 AVID Senior Celebration, the board indicated a wish to see the students' individual mission statements, which were part of the program that afternoon. Dos Pueblos High's AVID students turned in their statements, and they are now posted on the AVID section of our website as well. Board, due to an inaccurate reporting, we continue to receive complaints about a news press article regarding our independent study PE program. We're preparing information. We sent in the corrections immediately, but we're preparing information which will accurately reflect the conversations and decisions made at the May 10 meeting on the subject. Actually, the changes in independent PE were relatively minor compared to what people have been complaining about and misled to believe. The board brief. My office regularly issues a report to the board called the Board Brief. It's a collection of articles and information items on school and district matters. A copy of the May 13 board brief is on display in the reception area. The board saw a number of reports in the last board brief, including a review of the OSHA procedures and trainings from Marlon Sumter in this last board brief. We also saw a number of master schedules and a staffing report from Solution Services, which recommends additional administrative supervision here in the district office to adequately oversee scheduling. We'll have to discuss that at a future board meeting. Our district's 145th anniversary celebration took place on May 12, and we anticipate airing the event on public access television. The All-ELAC for English Language Advisory Committee recognition of English learner students on May 18 was a wonderful celebration at McKinley Elementary School involving students, parents, and staff from throughout the districts. All board members were in attendance, and board, you may want to say something about this event as well. And board member Monique Limon was a guest speaker. Well, you have a lot of appearances, I've noticed. That's great. The event was coordinated largely by teacher on special assignment Katia Rodriguez-Mester and Salgarena from Padres Unidos. This weekend, the final performance of the school year will take place. Dos Pueblos High School's young playwrights will participate in the Gersh Hochman Young Playwrights Festival at the Rubicon Theater in Ventura. And that concludes the superintendent's report. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. Board comments and correspondence. Would board members care to comment?
Start down here.
Ms. Perrin?
Yes, I was at the ELAC celebration, and I learned, I was on my shoe was on the other foot. Monique gave a rousing speech in Spanish. And after the rousing speech, she said, now for my English-speaking friends, I'll give you a synopsis. And it dawned on me, we're in that situation a lot on the reverse, and it is something we need to do something about. I attended the VADA had a special program for parents, had a special speaker in talking about career opportunities in the arts. And very high-level speaker from out of town, and I think the parents really enjoyed it. It showed what their children can do with what they're learning in VADA. Last night, myself and Mrs. Cordero were at the Just Communities event where the San Marcos High School parents have been meeting for several weeks to come up with goals and strategies to help reduce the achievement gap and how to get better communication between Spanish, Latinos, and teachers and staff. And again, the point was made. Parents go to back to school night, and everything's in English. And you wonder why they don't go, because they don't speak English. It's one thing to worry about children speaking English, but parents, if we want parents to be involved in their education of their children, we need to solve that issue with them. It was very apparent last night. It was very apparent at McKinley. Dr. Sarvis didn't mention the Hope Awards, but Dr. Sarvis was honored at the Hope Awards as Superintendent of the Year. So congratulations, Dr. Sarvis.
I will just add that aside from some of the events that have been mentioned, I also had the opportunity to attend the La Cuesta, Alta Vista, and La Cumbre Junior High School award ceremonies. And I know that there's a lot of award ceremonies right now, so I just want to congratulate all of the students and their parents. I think one of the most exciting things about being able to attend the award ceremonies is watching how excited parents get. They're all ready with their cameras, taking pictures, and it just reminds me that these are huge milestones for the students and also the families. So congratulations.
And I want to say how sorry I am that most of us are missing the graduation, the senior awards and the junior high promotions because of the superintendent search process, which is very intense right now. And looking forward to the end of the school year, which will sort of be wrapping up the end of the superintendent search as well. I want to mention the Crystalopolo Awards last week, which were fabulous, and again, honoring Dr. Sarvis and our staff from La Cuesta and from Adams, and it was just a terrific event, and I'm so impressed with what the county puts on there. And I want to give a special thank you to Mrs. Cordero, who was not there, because she's been working so hard on the county committee, all about our district unification and going to all of those public hearings, and we were off having a great celebration, and you were here for really what was the most important thing of all, and I know we'll hear about that later, but I thank you, and I thank all the members of the county committee on school district organization that, have made this possible for us. So that's what I've been thinking about lately.
Well, thank you very much, and I do have to defer to the entire committee because they definitely worked hard on that, as did the county staff. So it was a great accomplishment, though.
Can I just say that a cheer erupted up in Buellton when we got the text from Mr. Smith about the unification, and Bill Cerrone actually announced it at the very end of the banquet because it was so momentous. Following up on the Hope Award, I just wanted to let everyone know that the Santa Barbara Education Foundation raised a significant amount of money at the Hope Awards that all will come back to our school. So it was not only a great event honoring you and Dr. Elings, but a great opportunity for people in the community to step forward and donate. And last night, Dr. Sarvis and I were at the Santa Barbara Athletic Roundtable Awards at the Doubletree, where we had literally hundreds of people, so many students, coaches being honored. It was really just a great event. Everyone felt, I think, really good about the accomplishments of our students in the realm of athletics. And the South Coast Community Aquatic Center was given an award for volunteerism for the community. And I just would like to mention Dr. Larry Harder, who was a great partner in fundraising for that effort and all the hard work he did. And we had a treasurer rather, Gary Maxwell, who kept all that money and made it grow and helped us build that pool. So I wanted to single out those two individuals for all of their help as well.
And we might note that Dr. Harder is the husband of former board member Nancy Harder. So I just wanted to echo many of the events and activities that other board members have already discussed. The event last night at San Marcos High School with the Just Communities parent organization was extremely informative, and I'm hoping that we can get them to either present before the board or to publish some of their report in the board brief, because it's coming from a community that we often do not hear from, and they had outstanding suggestions and recommendations. I also wanted to just note that I attended the Franklin School Arts exhibit that was at La Casa de la Raza, and I have to say, I was blown away by the level of art that even the youngest students were producing. They were modeling their work after various well-known artists, and I was also really found it exciting, the range of artists they were following, from Van Gogh and O'Keeffe to so now I'm going Banksy, and I'm thinking Banksy, yeah, and I thought the student work was just magnificent. From there, I went to the Mariachi Festival Awards, and for those of you who aren't familiar, the Mariachi Festival actually was established in order to raise money to give monetary awards to local students. So many of our students were being receiving awards there. It was another great event. It was extremely well attended, and the families were so appreciative of the honors that their students were receiving. So I just want to mention a couple of those things. We have a lot going on in our community, and we certainly have a lot to be thankful for in terms of the kinds of support that our students receive from a variety of organizations, as well as our staff and faculty, administrators, et cetera. So with that, I guess we can move on, but we have a very busy schedule. Okay, do we have any public comment? This is the time we take public comment on items that are within the purview of the Santa Barbara School District, but are not on the agenda, on this evening's agenda. If we have someone who would like to speak, could you fill out a speaker slip, please? They should be right there on the table. And oh, you did already? Okay, then we'll call your name. Great, thank you. Oh, I'm sorry, I skipped our closed session. We did not have any reportable action at the closed session this evening. So now we'll move to public comment. Oh, I'm sorry, are we out of slips? Okay. Thank you, Mrs. Smith. And then if you want to just bring them up.
Okay, well, if there's anyone else who'd like to fill one out, please help yourselves, and I'll go ahead and begin to call those who've already turned theirs in. We have Paul Rooney, followed by Shannon Richards, followed by Deborah Pentland.
Once again,
Sorry, Mrs. Pentland speaking on F1.
I guess this is not
Thank you,
on.
Mr. Rooney.
This is not on, I don't think. Is this on? Oh, okay. Once again, thank you for, I'm humbly appreciate being in front of you again. I have something to say here. Thank you for the opportunity to speak to you again. My reason for speaking is to address a misperception that our classified union, and I cannot speak for the SBTA union, are the cause of the delay in budget negotiations. This is simply not true. CSEA, in good faith, submitted a comprehensive proposal at the beginning of this month, and two council meetings later, we are still waiting for a response. I know the district unification has taken the fast track of being implemented, but in the meantime, whoever is leaking the inaccurate information to the public, I would ask that this be stopped. Our relationship with the district has been very cordial and professional and productive. I have great respect for all parties involved, and I trust this will continue to be the path we stay on through this crisis moments we must survive through. Thank you. I appreciate it.
Thank you. Thank you. Shannon Richards, followed by Kate Smith, followed by Miguel Santana.
Hello there. Hi. My name is Shannon Richards, and I asked to speak regarding the continuation of the one-on-one RN nursing services for children with disabilities. My family has such a child who has been under the exquisite care and supervision of those district nurses, especially Debbie Pentland and his nurse Lauren, who is contracted through an agency you are no longer supporting. My son Justin, who is 10, was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes in November '09 while in 3rd grade. He has attended Adams since 1st grade. And so far, that has been the most terrifying event for my husband and myself. With no family or personal history of diabetes, we were scared to death with no experience or real day-to-day knowledge of this disability. I have to applaud and thank you for the outstanding and quick help and services that were in place for this that we received. Again, Debbie Pentland held our hand and paved the way for Justin to have a one-on-one nurse, procuring the doctor's orders tutoring all of Justin's teachers in signs to look for regarding his highs and his lows in sugar and what to do in case of an emergency. Even demonstrating to Justin's classmates what diabetes is, how testing is done, and about injections. This helped my son so much in returning to school as a normal kid and offered us, his parents, such comfort in that he was getting the absolute best care. So often that is unrecognized, but definitely not unappreciated. Justin has had the same nurse, Lauren, since 3rd grade and now through 4th, and he has learned more about his diabetes from her than anyone else because he trusts her, and they're a team. She has proven herself and skills time and time again with the ever-changing routines and dosing that my son needs. Forgive me. Having Lauren and her becoming a part of our extended family is a godsend, or rather, you sent her. And we're so sorry we are losing her due to the budgetary cuts, and I'm understanding of that. But I do not understand the questions and the hesitation on the board's part to continue with this excellent care that these children receive now.
30 seconds.
Sorry, versus providing substandard care that will inevitably end with a tragedy and a what were we thinking reassessment of how a few dollars more could have saved a child's life. I'll end there. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Richards. Kate Smith, followed by Miguel Santana, followed by Alec Twidlig.
I am disgusted by your obscene and self-congratulatory demeanor, and I know you don't like me, and I don't care. I'm reading from the official minutes of July 26, 2005. Deborah Pentland, district nurse, was concerned about cabinet-level decision plans made regarding the dismantling of the health program. Is this on? It doesn't sound like it is. She's concerned about the number of nurses versus the number of students and requests for nurses to present information to the board. Dr. Sarvis stated he was surprised and not aware of this decision/plan and was prepared to discuss the problem. Deborah Pentland and the lead nurse, Michelle Melendez, received their pink slip last month, and there was some sort of official hearing, and they will not be rehired. There is deep-seated and widespread school and government corruption in Santa Barbara. Your self-aggrandizement, your lack of self-evaluation, your cronyism and nepotism, misallocation of public funds, abuse of power, abuse of process, and denial of rights under color of law will be exposed. Do not doubt it. In the meantime, my daughter did not receive a free and appropriate education, and she has fled the district. She is going to Santa Ynez because you insist that our home at 3400 Gibraltar Road is in Santa Ynez. So she boards a bus at 6:40 a.m. at Roosevelt School. This Friday, she'll board the bus at 6:40 a.m. She'll go to Santa Ynez, where she'll board a bus to go to Ledbetter Beach in Santa Barbara for her graduation. Then she'll take the bus back to Santa Ynez, and then from Santa Ynez School, she'll come back to Roosevelt School. She will spend 6 hours on a bus for her graduation day. That's fine. Better than being in the Santa Barbara School District where she was endangered. So I will be serving subpoenas tomorrow for the amount of money that you have spent on taxpayer-paid lawyers, Craig Price, to retaliate against whistleblowers.
30 seconds.
And I do have some old business regarding the superintendent. November 2nd, 2009, Dear Board of Education, Brian Sarvis made a comment to me today, and I requested clarification because the tone was menacing and threatening. Brian Sarvis said, "Don't go there, Kate. I'm warning you." I demand to know where there is.
Thank you, Mrs. Smith. Miguel Santana, followed by Alec Twidlig.
if I could correct you, it's Miguel Sagun. It's like Lagoon but with an S. I'm here today for my final project, and I want to analyze you guys, and if I could get some, like, 2 of you to get like an interview after this, that'd be cool.
It is not customary for the board to respond to questions. This is a time for staff, or for the public to make comments to the board, so we usually don't engage in a discussion. But you're out of order, Ms. Smith. However, our meeting will end, if you say after this, it would have to be after the meeting.
Yes.
And our meeting will likely end quite late. I think we would probably be willing to talk to you, but I don't know if you would want to wait that long.
So I can't ask you questions right now?
I'm sorry, that's not appropriate in this format.
Thank you.
Okay, I'm sorry.
Madam President, we do have a break, and maybe some of us could talk to you at break time.
That's true. We have a break probably scheduled at, let's see,
8:30?
it's scheduled, I think, at 8:30? 8:40. Okay.
Thank you. Alec Twidlig. Twigden, sorry.
Yeah, it's Alec Twigden. Yeah, this thing doesn't work. I'm concerned about the constant phone calls from the school district about really insignificant things, and it becomes pretty annoying when you get like 3 or 4 phone calls about things like things to inform the parents, I understand, but things about like shows and presentations from teachers and little things like that is, I think, up to the students to find out about themselves rather than being interrupted at your home constantly. Because lots of time I'm eating dinner with the family and I get a phone call and then we have to stop dinner. And that's a common problem among lots of us students and our families. That's it.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Twigden. That concludes public comment.
Okay, so, Mr. Sagun, if you would like to email us, you can also do that. So that concludes our public comment. We will move on now to the acceptance of donations. Do I hear a
I'll move to
motion?
accept with gratitude.
Second.
Okay, moved and seconded to accept with gratitude and with great gratitude, because we are always so fortunate to have so many people who are willing to support our schools. So all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, abstentions, motion carries 5-0. That brings us to the consent agenda. Are there any items on the consent agenda that board members would like to pull? Mrs. Parker?
D5 and D7.
Okay. Those were the 2 that I was going to pull. So, any others? Nope. Oh,
I
Mr.
won't pull one, but I'll just make my general comment on D14 and D15, both the lease back process. I'm just hoping that at some point we'll see validation actions on some of these. It still bothers me that we're opening ourselves up to possible legal. We haven't yet, knock on wood, we won't, but it's always a possibility.
Okay. Is there a motion?
I will move to approve the remainder of the consent agenda.
Is there a second?
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. We will return to items D5 and D7 at the end of this agenda. Okay, that brings us to our action agenda, item E1. Approval of resolution 2010-11, I'm sorry, 2010/11-55, adopting name for Unified School District and the continued status of governing board member.
We have received approval for unification of the elementary and the secondary districts. We have a report on the fiscal implications later on tonight's budget, but we do have the name issue to take care of, and presenting this is Eric Smith, Deputy Superintendent.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. The chronology of how the unification took place is laid out, and I know that several of you have heard me talk about that like a broken record, so I'm not going to bore you to tears with that. But I think the most significant thing is that as part of this process, the State Board of Education approved 3 waivers. One was to waive the election, one was to waive the effective timeline, and one was to waive the requirement that a new board be installed so the incumbent board could serve as the first board of the unified school district. One of the things that we're grappling with, given the accelerated nature of the unification, is the requirement that we get things like new EIN numbers from the federal government, CDS codes from the California Department of Ed, and dealing with other regulatory agencies. Well, in a normal unification process, you'd have like 18 months to deal with that before it became what's called effective for all purposes. We become effective for all purposes by passage of the waivers July 1. So we need a new name. The code, Ed Code Section 35,000, stipulates that the governing board of the new school district will actually name the name of the district at the first board, or whatever that legally is, as soon practically thereafter. So what we'd like to do is have you name the district now, and as you can see, that the Ed Code requires that you need to insert the term unified in the new name of the district, which is required under the Ed Code, and then also under your discretion, also identify who the officers will be going into July 1, and probably come back and validate this action, probably through a consent item at the first meeting in July. So that's the nature of the action. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions. And thank you.
Okay, board members? No? We have public comment? Okay.
Kate Smith.
Five years ago, there was the positing of the unification of the districts, and the public was told it was impossible to do. My, what a difference an economic downturn can make. This happened very quickly. I attended the School District Boundary Line Committee when it had its hearing at Montecito Union School, and I described the problem with Gibraltar Road. Gibraltar Road, the entire Gibraltar Road, all of the houses above Las Canoas are listed in the directory as being in Santa Ynez Valley School District, whereas some of the houses are even inside the Santa Barbara city limit. So I let the Boundary Line Committee know that there was a serious violation of the educational code, which directed you to have clear and correct boundary lines for you to unify your districts. Ms. Cordero, you're the, I know you think I'm off.
Unification, please?
I know you're having a hard time understanding how anything I could say makes sense, but I suppose that the Department of Justice and the Office of Civil Rights and the big Boundary Line Committee will explain it to you. Ms. Cordero, the representative to the District Boundary Line Committee herself. Thank you.
Mr. Herron?
I'll move we approve resolution number 2010/2011-55, adopting the name for Unified School District and the continuous status of governing board members. And I guess that's the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
Yes, I think that we want to stipulate the name as the Santa Barbara Unified School District.
And I'll second that if that's what you're stipulating in your motion.
Okay.
I'll second that, but I do have a question for Mr. Smith.
Okay.
And that is, with the name change, obviously, there are a lot of things that we need to change. I think letterhead will be pretty straightforward because that's printed out sheet by sheet. It's done with a template. But we have signs to change and business cards to change. Business cards will be low cost. Signs probably low cost, but I'm just wondering what your rollout is for it. Will that happen as soon as possible after July 1st?
Well, that's what I would think is, as you said, the letterhead is easily adjusted. It's just a template. It's a header in our word processing, so that can be done as soon as possible. I would imagine that we will recycle out a lot of our business cards, just not refill, let the Santa Barbara School District's ones go by the wayside, and when they're empty, re-up those orders. The signage issue, I'm going to have Dave Hetjonk take a look at. I know he's already started to work on some of it, but I don't think we've looked at it comprehensively, but we'll bring back some information probably relative to a facilities item that deals with that issue.
And I assume that the website's all probably ready to go live on July 1st.
Actually, we're also looking at a domain change. I know that Dr. Davis Hayden has been investigating that, but I'm not sure if he's shaking his head like it's not feasible.
No, that would be
Yeah,
huge.
we've actually
How about
studied
email?
that. We've studied
No?
that, and we've decided to stay with the same domain. SBUSD is not available in
That's
that
Santa Barbara.
form,
That's San
and
Bernardino.
Can you
we
still-
pulled back from
Bernardino.
aliases, so we
Oh.
really don't want to make that change. By the way,
We're not gonna use
I won't
aliases?
need new business cards.
Okay, Dr. Sarvis.
And as always the case, there's always something, in the day-to-day operations of the district you haven't thought of, and you're going to see it and say, hey, that's Santa Barbara School District's on it, and we need to change that. So,
I would like to add that this name change is really the culmination of a full year's worth of work that I credit Eric Smith and his staff with taking on early. They went over all the figures last summer. They ran the figures past FICMAT, other agencies. They sat down with the county. We had a lot of cooperation from the county on this. They had everything lined up so that by November we were able to announce and go for the state waivers, submit to the county committee on school organization, and actually everything went like clockwork. I mean, it didn't seem like a slam dunk back then, but it really did go very smoothly, as smooth as it could ever have gone. Thank you.
And I'd just like to echo my appreciation for Mr. Smith's work, too. As soon as you made me aware of the change with the Thompson unification and the ability to go forward in a way that we would not in the past have had the opportunity to do, I was hopeful that this would come to pass, but I did not expect that it would pass this quickly or this smoothly. So I would really like to thank you and your staff for all the work that you did to make that happen.
thank you.
Deacon?
I would just like to say that on such a generally grim financial landscape, this is a really bright spot. And we're probably unique in the whole state in having this opportunity in so many ways. And so it's going to really relieve some tremendous burdens to our district. So I'm also looking forward to people not thinking we're making grammatical errors when we put the apostrophe at the end of districts. So that's one nice little side bonus.
Okay, thank you very much.
Madam President?
Yes.
We have to vote on that.
Yes, I was just
But,
gonna- yeah.
but also, I'd just like to make my standard comment. I think it's a shame that we get $6 million and we have to use it just to stay afloat, rather than be able to be creative and do some great things with it. And maybe in the future we will be able to if things go right. But we keep tossing around the word staff, and I'd like to put a name to that staff. A part of it, Mrs. Jate, I'm sure she did a lot of the number crunching, and I really appreciate that.
Yeah, actually, I mean, I probably should point out not only Meg Jate, but Julie Nemus, and we had a number of business office staff that worked on this, so they should all get the credit they deserve. I would also echo Ms. Cordero's statement. It was unusual in the sense that I think I've explained to the board the calculations are a snapshot in time. So to have that, have the change in law, and have the ability to use the waivers, it was unusual in the sense that all those things aligned at once. And let me tell you, I don't think there was a day that went by in the last probably 6 months where Meg and I didn't have a conversation about unification and what could go haywire and how could it go off track, and because the stakes were so high.
Well, thank you very much, and I think we can call the question now. So we have a motion on the floor. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Okay, motion carries 5-0. This is historic.
So just a point of clarification.
Yes, Mr. Smith?
So Ms. Cordero will be the first president of the Unified Board, and Ms. Deacon will be the first vice president of the Unified Board.
Correct.
Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item E2. Okay, approval of issuance of diplomas to end of the year secondary school graduates. This is always one of our favorite things to do.
That's right.
Dr. Sarvis?
Robin Sawaski will make this presentation.
Okay, yes, it is an annual event here, although I think one year we forgot to do this until afterwards, so we've got it on our tickler file, and we've got it ahead of time this time. It's always a little bit tricky because we know that sometimes the numbers change. And I was going to announce that. Yes, we have, according to this, 1,603 graduates or students who are eligible for graduation at this point as certified by their principals. This usually stays about the same, but as you know, right at the end, some things shift here and there. But this is the number right now, so we're asking for your approval of the issuance of diplomas to the secondary school graduates.
So moved.
Second.
Great. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, and we congratulate all the graduates who are listed here from our district. Congratulations to them and to their families.
And look forward to the graduations on June 2nd.
And look forward to the graduations, yes. And I would like to ask just one question. If we could maybe have a follow-up in the board brief. We've discussed in the past some of the policies and requirements for graduation. I'm always interested in how many students we have, if any, who don't go through the graduation ceremony or aren't receiving their diploma, who have actually completed all the units required, but because of some other situation are either not receiving a diploma or not going through the ceremonies. So if we could just get that information, that would be great. And we can move on to item E3. Approval of framework for Santa Barbara High School restructuring plan, intervention specialist position, and the job description for the intervention specialist.
Well, we've been working with Santa Barbara High School as they're entering the next year of program improvement. We've pulled a number of elements out of the WASC accreditation report and out of other reports that are already in place. We believe that this position will secure the changes that we need, and Robin Sawaski will make this presentation as well.
Okay, I know you have this in front of you, but I want to, just remind everybody, and for the record, when schools go into year 4 of program improvement, it's LEA, or the local educational agency's responsibility to actually apply corrective action. And according to the No Child Left Behind federal requirements, those have to be not just anything we want, but an action plan of alternative governance that you have to select one of them. Reopen the school as a charter, replace all or most staff, including the principal, contract with an outside entity to manage the school, and that really means manage and take over, or any other major restructuring. Our staff recommends, in the case of Santa Barbara High School, because we anticipate that this will be the case, it's very difficult, as you know, to step out of program improvement once you start going along that path. district staff recommends, along with talking with the staff, Dr. Sarvis and I have gone to Santa Barbara High several times and met with the staff. We've met with site council, that the major restructuring is exactly the course we would like to take. We've been fairly successful with other schools making huge improvements by a restructuring type of corrective action. One in particular, Santa Barbara Junior High. And as you know, John Becchio, the principal at Santa Barbara Junior High, is stepping into Santa Barbara High School. So in looking at what type of movement or corrective action needs to be in place, a huge part of it is working with the principal on what that person feels is going to be effective and the most logical course of action. So as you can see, we've looked at the different plans, the comprehensive review from the Santa Barbara County Education Office that the school went through, the WASC, and other things, other kinds of data that goes into it. So we are, you've got a plan or a framework for a restructuring plan that we worked with Mr. Becchio. And it looks fairly generic at this point. There's a lot on there. You'll recognize some, common topics in school improvement research. All of those, however, come from those plans that I mentioned and the pieces of kind of the plan at Santa Barbara High that need to really have some attention given to them. So that's a framework for the plan. It's not the actual plan, because what we feel needs to happen is that we need to have support. We have to have the whole staff, all the stakeholders, including parents, involved in creating a very targeted plan for the school using this framework. So our action item tonight is your approval of the framework, knowing that it's going to be tweaked to really be very specific for Santa Barbara High School. It's also approving what we feel is a strong move in support of the school, and that's the hiring of an intervention specialist position, which is a teacher position. And then along with that is attached the job description for that intervention specialist. We've had different people working in a similar kind of capacity before, but we haven't actually had that as a job description. And we've seen that as a very strong position, really helps the school, is not just an assistant principal, this is a teacher, but their whole purpose is working on the improvement plan, working with staff, and then also really looking at the students who are most educationally at risk. And so you can see the funding for that really follows that notion too. Excuse me, the site council last Monday, a week ago yesterday, approved the funding for their 60%, the site's 60%, what we're proposing, funding using Title I, and that's specifically targeted for those most at-risk students. In a targeted assistance school like Santa Barbara High is, it's not school-wide, you have to be very careful about the way you use your Title I funding. That follows to any kind of district funding that we would add to that. We couldn't possibly use Title I funding from the district for that. We have to have a much less restricted form of funding so that we can have that person also working with all students, working with the staff, working with the plan, and all the other aspects of the restructuring. Therefore, we're proposing that we use 40%, which works out to be maximum 40,000, somewhere between 35, 40,000 for pupil retention, SIP, one of those tier 3 funding sources. Technically, that funding could go toward really anything. And that's, with this flexibility time, it is considered unrestricted funding. When it comes to us in that categorical block, typically those are the kinds of funds we use for our YSSs, those kinds of costs, not just a teacher on staff. So if you look at it in the form of the site is putting 60%, the district's adding in a 40% piece, we're actually creating a position for another teacher because that teacher will be out of the classroom working with that. So we've kind of opened up a teaching position at that school. So I'm here to answer questions. John Becchio is also here, soon to be principal, if you have questions of him, and anything about the restructuring plan, the job description, the funding, but we would ask your approval tonight so we can move forward. And as I said, the site council has already approved their funding and the general concept and framework.
Mrs. Parker?
Thank you. I have a couple questions. My first one is, we hired UCLA, a team from UCLA, to come in to San Marcos and Santa Barbara High. So I'm wondering what's going on with
Good
that.
question. That's no longer happening. We didn't spend a penny on it.
Okay,
You
so
just
we are
approved
now
it.
saving, how much
We're
money? That was
saving-
about 27,000, is that
Yes,
correct?
exactly. That, it's hard times financially, and UCLA is really looking at that, and I believe they're not funded at this point, or it's very doubtful that that group, which had been in practice for a long, long time, very successful. So
It is a shame to hear that,
it's-
because they had a terrific
Yes.
reputation.
However, I understand that they are looking at kind of connecting with the International Center for Leadership and Education,
Okay.
which is another strong team. But besides that, though, we're now saying, no, that's off. So we are saving that funding that had already been approved.
Okay. Of the high schools, Santa Barbara has been in program, year 4 is the farthest we've gotten along. I really appreciate you bringing up the targeted assistance piece, because I was looking at this and realizing, okay, well, we have assisted from the district. We've supported sites that have been at year 4, year 5, typically short-term, maybe a year or two with specific things coming in, and then the site has had to figure out how they're going to continue the intervention with their site funds. But they've all been Title I school-wide.
Exactly. It's been
And
easier to do that.
I can see that this will be harder here, and it will be harder at San Marcos as it goes in, and then, Dos Pueblos, yikes, as they all move forward. And of course, I'm hoping that they don't move forward, but the reality is that they're likely to. But I think that the framework is good. I know that what Mr. Becchio has done at Santa Barbara Junior High has been very effective, and I really trust his judgment and the work that he's doing with his staff and with the district on putting together this plan. And the intervention specialist seems like a good idea, but this is just for 1 year?
It's for 1 year, and I'm glad you brought up San Marcos, because I've already started talking to Mr. Behrens about the fact that we want to try this model. We want to see how this position works and how it plays out, what we can, what successes we can find in this model, so that we could presumably use it next year. And that's one reason we had this job description put in place as well. I also wanted to remark on your comments about the support that we've given other schools. And yes, we have. Every school that's gone through that has had a variety of different supports, whether it be money for professional development, whether it's staff time, like La Cumbre kind of had Cynthia White there, living there practically. And so it's been different ways in which we've provided support from the district, depending upon what the principal wanted, the staff needed, that kind of thing. So yes, targeted assistance is a different kind of school and a different way that you can support them. You have to be very careful with the way you spend the money.
So the idea would be that the district would support this for 1 year, and
That's
then if
correct.
the site wants to continue it, they'll find site funding for it, but we may then offer it to the next school, secondary,
Exactly.
going into year 4. Okay.
Exactly. That's the thought.
Thank you.
And I just want to take a second and clarify, as we talk about the fact that Santa Barbara High School is going into year 4 and the other high schools may follow, that I want to make sure that the public is reminded of the nature of No Child Left Behind, in that schools can continue to improve their test scores and still fall further and further behind in the process of No Child Left Behind, because the targets continue to increase. So the fact that our schools might remain in program improvement or might continue into an additional year of program improvement is not a reflection on the school's lack of improvement. In fact, some schools make tremendous improvements and still remain in program improvement. And it's one of the concerns, is that one of the things that makes it so very difficult to get out once the school has fallen into it. So just so that the public is aware that this is by no means a reflection on a lack of achievement on the part of our students.
That's correct.
And Mrs. Cordier, I'm really glad you mentioned that because I think people don't realize that if No Child Left Behind stays the way it is, and in fact it may change because it's up for reauthorization, but every school in California would ultimately be in program improvement. And the model I believe that's being looked at is instead of punishing schools for incremental growth, that instead you reward them as they continue to grow. So thank you. Can I just continue with a couple of quick questions? I like the fact that the site has really stepped up on this and has partnered with it, and I think that really indicates a lot of belief on their part that this is the way to go. I had a question about one of the items here, it's number 4 under organization, clarify administrative organizational structure. What's that going to look like?
You know, I can't tell you exactly what it'll look like, but it's something that the school will look at. For example, not under, and maybe John Becchio wants to add to this, but not because they were in program improvement, but for instance, at Dos Pueblos now, they have one assistant principal that just focuses on curriculum and instruction, another one that just primarily focuses on discipline. I mean, that would be one example of a different organizational structure, really clarifying it so that everybody on staff knows exactly who to go to for what particular, issue they have. Maybe Mr. Becchio wants to add to that.
That's what I would have said, and I can show you a model that I put into place at Santa Barbara Junior High that is an actual document, one-page document that is published to everyone so that it's very clear who's doing what and that there's not duplication of people's duties. And I find that's an inefficiency in an organization that'll cause, it'll cause less to get done. And so that's one of the items that is going to be a very important piece of the restructuring. Now, how that happens, I think the important thing is what those duties are and who's responsible for them still has not been something that's taken place. So this is a good example of there's something broad here, but as I get to the site and I start working with staff and teams of people, we start putting together the pieces more specifically.
Ms. Limon?
Mr. Becchio, along those lines, I'm actually just curious, you've been very successful at Santa Barbara Junior High. What elements do you think are directly replicable at Santa Barbara High School in looking at this restructure plan, and which do you foresee to be some of the greatest challenges for the high school? Sorry, I just...
No, I was just thinking that sounded like an interview question.
No. It's not an interview question. You have the job.
Well, I think, certainly the administrative organizational structure, that is a piece that I've put into place. I actually did that with office staff as well, so everyone was very clear of who to go to, and that's something that I know can be replicated and make a big difference on the campus. I think if you look at some of the instructional pieces of higher level rigor, instructional monitoring, those kind of things are things that can be replicated. Professional development plans and the way in which one might go about that is something that I think is a good model we used at Santa Barbara Junior High and something that can be replicated as well. And so let me just quickly look through these real quick in case there's something else I'm missing. I think the PLC model as well, it's one that is very, very strong at Santa Barbara Junior High, something that can certainly be replicated. But again, I think there's a lot of work in that structure of bell schedule. There's some instructional minute issues around that need to be dug into really as I get to there and start working with teams of staff members to figure out how best to approach that for that site. But certainly the way in which PLCs operate and the type of things they're doing within PLCs can be duplicated. They're very well researched and can be duplicated at any site really.
I had a couple of questions, and I don't know whether to direct them to Mr. Becchio or to Ms. Waski. They're regarding the intervention specialist and the job description. One of the things, I think it's number 2, under major duties, oversees targeted intervention and other specific needs of at-risk students. And I was wondering how much of this person's position, if any, is actually working with students, or is it mostly overseeing the instructors or other administrators who work with the students?
Well, it really is going to depend on what phase of restructuring you're in. So,
Okay.
you know, as more intervention systems and more sophisticated intervention systems get put into place, as you go maybe a year or 2 or 3 from now, you'll start seeing that position is interacting with far more students than they are in the beginning of the restructuring phase, because quite frankly, right now, our project next year is going to be developing a very specific restructuring plan based on the broad items that are on that one pager. So I think initially it's going to be some student contact with those particular kids, but a lot of trying to get that ball rolling on developing a tight restructuring plan, which is prescribed by NCLB for year 4. By the end of year 4, we really need to have a restructuring plan adopted, ready for implementation in year 5. The approach I took at the junior high was to have that plan adopted prior to year 5 so we could just get going on it. And some of these things will get going on right away, but as far as developing something the site can accept, that involves really all the stakeholders, and we need next year to do that. And this position will be a very, very big part of that.
Okay, well, that kind of leads me to the next question, which was that I didn't see much in here in terms of working with the parents or the community. And I don't know if that's because that will be done in another area, or, because I know that with PI status, it's often really important to do outreach to the community to make sure that the community understands what all of that means and what the school is doing to address it. So I'm just wondering if that's in place in another part?
I would actually place the biggest responsibility for that with the principal.
Okay.
I think it's really important, and John's an expert at doing this, in really leading the way. I mean, no doubt this person certainly could interact with parents and will, specifically with students who are that they're working with. But I believe that's more the role of the principal. John, you may want to add more to that.
And there'll be interaction with families of the students that are being served, certainly. So that will be a piece of that position.
So what I see in your, in the draft plan under school culture is number 3, improve responsiveness and communication of student progress to parents and students. And I just wondered, I was taking that to mean more specifically about their each individual student's actual progress. What I was talking about had more to do with informing the parents as a whole what was sort of happening with the school and with the program improvement. But that, your response, I think, makes sense. And then the other question I had, I wish Mr. Hetjank was here because I think this might be directed to him, and that is under in the job description under physical abilities. I'm wondering if all of these are truly required in this position, or could a person who did not have these abilities, some of these abilities, for example, hearing, if a hearing impaired person were using accommodations, would he or she be able to?
And actually, this section just came straight from our Human Resources Department, and Ann Peek's in the back of the room. I'm assuming that this is a standard piece that goes into.
But this does include reasonable accommodations.
Yeah, up in the top, reasonable accommodations may be made, in the top paragraph there.
Okay, so, I was sorry, I was misreading that then. I thought that meant, never mind, I was misunderstanding what that particular statement meant. Okay, so then that addresses my question. Thank you. Ms. Deegan?
Madam President,
Oh.
we do have one public comment. Ann Fisher?
Good evening. My name is Ann Fisher. I'm from Santa Barbara High School, and I really appreciate the questions that have been asked by the board tonight. There are many of the questions that I had as I came over here this evening. A year ago, I spoke to you about the serious situation we have with truancies in the school district. And the problem at Santa Barbara High School is especially difficult because of the pilot program that we had that we've now been able to abandon. We've moved on to something else. Approval of the item for the intervention specialist could possibly jeopardize some of the funding we have to prevent truancy at our school. Our issues have not completely been voted on by our school site council, and we've only started to look at what we want to fund for the 2011-12 site plan. Many of the items before the site council have already been tabled because we're looking for more information. I have no problem seeing an intervention specialist position funded if in fact it's an open position and it does not jeopardize anything else that we're trying to do to improve student achievement at the school. We're looking all to work together to increase student achievement at our school. We as a faculty want to get behind our new principal. We're very excited about what's happening with the new change in leadership. But we ask you as a board to help guarantee that we don't take on one role to improve student achievement at the expense of another role. We also need your help in supporting the Santa Barbara High School staff, which is now working collaboratively and has a voice in improving student achievement. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Fisher.
Okay, any additional, oh, sorry, Mr. Herron?
Yes, Mrs. Fisher just touched on a topic I was going to ask about regarding budget, but let me preface it by saying I've had several conversations with Mr. Becchio, and I can tell from his passion and his involvement in this that I have no problem with it whatsoever. But it is a $100,000 position. It's not new money. I mean, it's money we used last year for something. It's the $60,000 from the high school is money they used for something last year. What are we giving up in exchange for this new position?
Well, that's a good question, and I want to comment that Site Council did vote on this, so the comments of that Ms. Fisher made about I think those are her comments, but actually Site Council voted to approve this position 2 weeks ago. So it's a little hard to tell, quite honestly, what they would be giving up, because as I dig into the budget, it's very hard to tell where things are being paid for and what expenses are coming from what. And I think there were some issues surrounding that with the master schedule last year. So what I'm trying to do is go through the process. I'm there as a visitor right now at Site Council, but they're doing a great job within committees. They've spread out to staff members. They're very organized, getting all the feedback from staff, and they come back. Our parent groups are bringing back their requests, and they're going through them one at a time, looking at what the expenditures are going to be. Yes, there's a truancy issue. There's no doubt about that. Right now, what we have been talking about is a family liaison position to assist us with communicating with those families of truancy. So that's not an issue that's going to go just put by the wayside because of this. That's really going to be something we tackle right away as the truancy issue, and it's not going to come at the expense of this. It's just a matter of developing the right plan for truancy, because as Ms. Fisher said, there was one in place that apparently did not work. And so right now, rather than do the same thing and try to get different results, I think it's wise for us to spend some time on that truancy issue, which we're doing now. We're sending out surveys to staff, and we're getting a lot of great information about what teachers would be willing to implement in order to change the truancy issue at Santa Barbara High. So, you know, I can't tell you what we're going to give up, Mr. Herron, but I know that we're going to go through and kind of address the real needs of the school in that fashion as a site council.
Good. What I hear you saying is that you're going to spend the money more wisely.
That's my intention.
That's good.
I can also add to that too. The funding that was allocated for this position when it was approved was Title I, and Title I money cannot be spent for truancy. So it's not, we're not giving up that for this position. As far as the district's portion, that 40,000 approximately, maximum of that the specific that I've targeted is what we were spending on a bridge program. It's out of that pocket of money. Again, that can be considered unrestricted, but that's specifically where I was pulling it from in my thinking.
Great, thank you, because that clarifies a lot. Any additional questions or comments for Mr. Vecchio or Ms.
No, but
Swasey?
I'd like to go ahead and move to approve the framework for the Santa Barbara High School's restructuring plan and intervention specialist position and the job description for the intervention specialist.
Second.
Okay, all those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Mr. Vecchio. Okay, that moves us on to item E4. Approval to submit the Thrive Westside proposal on behalf of Harding University Partnership School, McKinley Elementary School, La Cumbre Junior High School, and San Marcos High School.
And Robin Swaski, Associate Superintendent, will introduce this as well.
Okay. I will not go ahead and read this whole thing. You did have it as a board brief. You've got, I'll read just the really quick piece here, but I want to note that John Clark from the Bauer Foundation is here. We've got Sally Kingston, principal at Harding University Partnership School, Emilio Handel from McKinley Elementary, Joanne Keynes from La Cumbre Junior High, and Ed Barron, soon to be principal at San Marcos High School. All of those schools are a part of this project, and they're all here to answer questions. And did I miss anybody out there? Okay. The Thrive Westside, it's now called Thrive Westside, is going to be building on the existing projects at Harding University Partnership School, McKinley School, and La Cumbre School, which were funded last year through the Bauer Foundation, Orfila Family Foundation, Santa Barbara Foundation, and First Five of Santa Barbara County. And that proposal extends the 0-5 focus, and it extended that first piece, and now it's including San Marcos High. It's really, many of us really went to the Strive initiative work, the meetings. There was a whole day or two where people came and described that cradle to college, every child cradle to college. That was a really interesting initiative, and many of the aspects of that are in this project, as well as the Harlem Children's Project, as you know. So the proposal is here. Our approval is just to submit the Thrive Westside proposal on behalf of the schools that I mentioned. So knowing that, and in reading this, knowing that the plan is going to change, they're meeting constantly, they're going to spend a lot of time this summer really making the plan more specific. So it is an ever-changing, developing plan, really meeting the needs of the families on that side, the west side of town, from 0 on up. And you've heard a lot about the things that are going on at those different schools. So I think I'm going to open it up at this point for questions, probably to the people in the audience.
Okay. Do board members have questions? Mrs. Parker?
I don't really have questions. I'm just trying to imagine what would happen right now if we didn't vote to approve it with these principals in the room. It would be attacked. I think that this is just, it's really a model for public-private partnership, and I so appreciate the nonprofits in our community that have stepped forward. It's been interesting to see the way this has been morphing over the past couple of years. I see progress every time. I see refinement every time. I see exciting new ideas every single time. And I'm really looking forward to watching this over the next few years and knowing that if there are things that don't work, they're going to be changed right away. I think it's terrific. I think it's such a boon for our students on the West Side, and it will be a model for our students throughout the entire community. So I'll go ahead and move to approve to submit the Thrive West Side proposal. And I'm sure that other board members are going to want to second that and chime in.
Well, first we need the second.
Are there public comments?
There are no slips.
Do we have a
I'm sure
second
they
for the
do.
motion?
I will happily second that.
Thank you. Okay, now we can have discussion.
Can I just echo what Mrs. Parker was saying about watching the evolution of this? Because now we've got preschool all the way through high school represented, and it's really an exciting piece. Yes, and Ms. Kingston's pointing out even preschool, right? But I also love the fact that there's so much energy in the West Side and that the whole community is benefiting from this, not just the children, but the parents as well. We see them at La Cumbre in the evenings, and I like the fact it's a nimble organization, as Mrs. Parker was describing, so that you can change and correct when you see the need to do that. But I love the fact you're all collaborating. There's this vertical integration, so thank you for being great partners.
And I'd just like to echo that first of all, I really have to thank the nonprofit organizations that have been so supportive and so involved in this project. We hope that our staff would be committed to our students and committed to improving the educational process that we offer to our students. And we respect their professionalism in doing so. But it's really quite gratifying when people who are not part of our district, the nonprofit organizations, step in and really mirror that same level of commitment and support for the students from, as we said, zero almost, to completing high school. This is just really, I would hope that it would be a model. It certainly serves as an incredible example of what can be produced when people really take the time and energy and really the commitment to try to improve a situation that they can do something about. And I just really want to, I know that all of us are probably going to say the same thing, but I just really want to thank all of you for taking the time, energy, patience, hard work, everything that went into it to put this into place, because as Ms. Parker said, the entire community benefits from this. Or I think Ms. Deacon said that, I'm sorry. The entire community will benefit, so thank you all. Ms. Limon?
And I'm going to echo everything that's already been said, but I think one other neat thing that in the last month I've actually heard directly from a McKinley teacher and at Harding that this work is already in place. There's kindergarten or preschool teachers that are saying, come to my classroom, our students are more than K-ready. And I think that this speaks to the efforts that have been taking place, and this couldn't happen without the funders. So I think that with what's been done already, with what you'll continue to do and the support of the foundations, I think it really goes a long way. And I had a chance to go to some of the preschool and kindergarten classrooms at Harding, and the students are more than K-ready, and they're ready to go on to that next level. And I'm really happy that the high school has jumped in, and I know that last week you were hearing about the initiatives at the elementary and junior high levels. So I think that this speaks volumes, and hopefully I'm looking forward to addressing all those things that we hear about, our students and the markers along the way, the kindergarten, the third grade, the 8th grade algebra, all of these things that we will address through this comprehensive program. And I'm going to quote Mr. John Clark and say that, we really can't allow this to fail, that this must be successful, and there's so much investment that's going on to making this successful. So thank you.
Okay.
Yes.
Ms. Perry?
What else is there to say? But I do, just a couple comments. It says there's no fiscal impact to our general fund, our unrestricted general fund over the next 8 years. But reading through this, our district is involved in so many different aspects of it. I mean, I guess I have a hard time understanding that we're not going to have some impact at some point in some way, shape, or form. But any answer to that?
Well, every school site, of course, has some power over how they spend their categorical funding. I mean, the teachers will be in place, obviously. Our preschool teachers will be in place. The parts where the extra funding comes are really in that 0 to preschool, and then supports for, extra nursing services, extra, different things that as the needs are identified, they come into play. But the funding sources that we would typically use for targeted, instruction, targeted services, it's all part of this collaborative program that's articulated from 0 on up through, to college and career. So it's just put together, it's all structured, and it's following a plan that
Good.
they're all working together on. So it's not different money, it's just the way they're using it
Using
more
the money.
strategically.
Good, thank you. The other concern I have, and I expressed it at one of the other meetings, is in here there's a cohort of 60 students going into Posse from La Cumbre to San Marcos. And I just hope that doesn't conflict with Apple. It looks like it's the same at-risk kids. It could be the same at-risk kids, and I've been assured that it's not, but there does seem to be a cohort of kids that may qualify for Apple. Then you have a debate over Apple and Posse, and if they have the ability to go to Posse or to Apple, I hope we don't dissuade them not to go. Thank you.
Okay, we have a motion on the floor and seconded. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries unanimously, and thank you all. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item E5, approval of resolution number 2010/2011-54, recognizing the contributions of classified school employees. And Ms. Alvarado will be presenting this.
I will. Board members and Dr. Sarvis, it is my great pleasure to present this resolution in recognizing our classified employees. Their contribution, as you well know, to our students from the clerical to custodial, instructional paraprofessional to food services, health and safety, help provide our students the great learning environment and on their way to be successful. So we again thank them for their dedication to our students and would like you to recognize and approve this resolution.
Board members, I think I'd just like to read the therefore before we make a motion. Therefore, the Board of Education of the Santa Barbara School Districts does hereby resolve to recognize and wishes to honor the contribution of the classified professionals to quality education in the state of California and in the Santa Barbara School Districts. And at this time, I will entertain a motion.
Well, before if you're going to move, do you have a correction or a change?
Go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Because
Go ahead.
mine is around that wishes to.
Okay.
And just to change it to recognize and to honor.
Okay.
Well, then, I will go ahead and move as amended. I like that. It's nice to be concise. I would move to approve Resolution 2010-11-54, recognizing classified employees. And I'd also like to say I'm sorry this is a little late, because I know we should have done this last week. And but it doesn't mean that we don't care any less for our classified employees, because we certainly value everything they do every day, and we see the fruits of their labor everywhere we go. So it's well supported, and thank you so much.
Do we have a second for the motion?
I will gladly second. As a former classified employee myself, I know the work that goes into being an educator and supporting our students every day. So gladly second that.
Thank you. All those in favor say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries unanimously. And once again, thank you very much to all of our classified staff. Thank you. Okay, that brings us to item E6, approval of renewal of pre-internship permit. And this, I think, will be presented to us by Ms. Peak.
Yes, it is. Ann Peak is a personnel analyst.
Good evening. As you may or may not know, the Commission on Teacher Credentialing eliminated the use of what are called emergency credentials. And we have a teacher who is currently on a PIP, or a pre-internship permit. And she is on that because the class she was enrolled in at Cal State Northridge was canceled halfway through the class. Therefore, we have to renew the pre-internship permit that she's on. So one of the requirements of the Commission on Teacher Credentialing is that this is done as an action item. So I've brought it to you this evening that you would approve the renewal of her pre-internship permit.
Board members?
So moved.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion?
Can I just ask, A quick
Ms.
question.
Oh, of course.
The commission is eliminating the use of emergency credentials. Is that just an efficiency cost-saving move, or why are they doing that?
I think there are still a few things they allow to be emergency credentials, such as emergency CLAD certificates. If someone is working on taking the CTEL exam or taking their CLAD coursework. I think their theory behind this is that you would have more qualified individuals in those positions if you have them on what are called STIPs, or short-term staff permits, or PIPs, which are pre-internship permits. Because a lot of times students aren't able to get enrolled into credential programs, they need to take their praxis exams, or there's a variety of different things they need to do. So
That's helpful, and I feel bad for Tzotzil because I know that we've seen this multiple times where
Yeah.
she's run into these bureaucratic obstacles, not of her own
It's
making,
very
and we know she's a great
frustrating.
teacher, so.
Yeah.
Okay, we have a motion. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Thank you, Ms.
Thank
B.
you.
Okay, then that brings us to the approval of board action on student discipline case number excuse me, numbers 10/11-13 and 10/11-28. Board members?
I will move to approve the recommendation of the Administrative Hearing Panel in Case 1011-13 for stipulated agreement, full year, one school year expulsion.
Okay, is there a second?
I don't think it's a hearing panel. I think it's just purely
It was the stipulated agreement.
approval of the
Correct.
stipulated agreement for the 1 year. I'll second it.
Okay, so motion made and seconded with the correction. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0.
Abstain.
Oh, I'm sorry. Ms. Parker did abstain on that one. I was rushing through that too quickly. Okay, second case?
In Case 1011-28, I will move to approve the stipulated agreement for full expulsion, 1 calendar year.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries 5-0. Okay, thank you very much. That brings us to our conference agenda and the
Right on time.
report on the May revise and the Thompson unification and the effect on the district budget objectives.
This is a critical item because, as you know, the budget flows and ebbs with every new report from the state and all sorts of advisories. Our Thompson unification has a heavy bearing on this topic, and we need to look ahead as we're about to adopt a new budget at the end of June for our school district. And we suspect, of course, in the absence of a state budget at that point in time. Eric Smith, our deputy superintendent, will make this presentation.
Thank you, Dr. Sarvis. On May 16th, the governor released the May revise to the state's 2011-12 fiscal year budget. The May revise is a significant milestone in both the development of the state's budget, but also in the development of our budget. As you know, we start our process normally around January. This year, we started a little earlier because our starting point really dealt with our first interim report. So at a macro level, some of the good news is that the state's budget deficit is shrinking. It was pegged at $26.6 billion in January. As you know, the legislature has passed $13.4 billion in expenditure reductions. And as part of the May revise, the governor recognizes $6.6 billion in improved revenue estimates for both the current year and the budget year. One of the things that's still risky, though, is the proposed 11-12 budget is still predicated on the passage of voter-approved tax extensions. Under this scenario, the Prop 98 entitlement grows by about $3 billion, and rather than giving that money to school districts on a per-student basis, what he's proposing to do, if you remember in the January governor's budget, there was a proposed $2.4 billion deferral where they defer apportionments across fiscal lines. He's actually proposing to buy that out. And the reason that's significant is that under the Prop 98 formula, whatever we get in Prop 98 in 1 year becomes the floor in the following year. So if you manipulate the entitlement by deferring apportionments across fiscal year lines, then you thereby reduce the entitlement. It's a dangerous game, and the state's been playing it for years now, and to turn the clock back is going to take a significant effort over time, but it's a step in the right direction fiscally for the state and actually fiscally for school districts on a statewide basis. Probably the most significant thing that happened in the May revise is, as you remember in the governor's proposed budget in January, he said we were going to see flat funding. Well, flat funding is actually a loss of $19 per student, but in the twisted logic of the State Department of Finance, who's the governor's staff, that equates to flat funding. So we budgeted on what was called a worst case, or now what they're calling a be prepared scenario, looking at actually an additional $330 per student cut, so $349 per student. And that was a $4.6 million ding in revenue to us. As you recall, we started in December with about a $10 million structural deficit, an imbalance between our revenues and expenditures on an ongoing basis. Well, with $4.6 million out of the picture here, and the infusion of $6 million in unification revenues, our situation has brightened significantly. But remember, there's always the risk with regard to those proposed temporary tax extensions. However, we will budget this because this is the industry standard. School Services of California and all the other groups are saying the governor has basically gave his word that we can count on flat funding, although we will take measures to protect ourselves in the event something does go sideways during the course of the next fiscal year. So based on the flat funding scenario, we're seeing a revenue limit COLA of 2.24%. As you can see, the revenue limit deficit is almost 20%. I showed you what's happening in 11-12 and 12-13. And the reason I'm zeroing in on that deficit, I think you've heard me say before, the additional dollars in unification are about $6 million after the deficit. If the deficit was entirely eliminated over time, it'd grow to about $7.4, $7.5 million. So that's a significant issue, is deficit reduction. In future years, if anybody talks about equalization, we don't want to hear about equalization because we're above the statewide average in revenue limits now. Only districts below the statewide average get equalization. We're all about deficit reduction. So not all good news with the May revise. Probably the things that were most disheartening is child development really takes a huge hit. Our child development programs are already struggling. They're going to be penalized fiscally even worse. I'm sure that Debbie Badger is going to come back soon with a plan in terms of how to address this. And also, there's an issue with special ed where actually the governor's proposing to shift the burden of providing mental health services from county governments back onto school districts. Difficult for us to quantify at this point, but it's going to hurt. So what does this mean for Santa Barbara school districts? Well, we identified $10 million structural deficit in December this year. The flat funding, if it holds, eliminates about $4.6 million of that hole. The unification, another $6 million, gets us about even with a little bit of an operational deficit. But there are risks. Proposals predicated on the extension of temporary taxes, sometimes next year through voter approval. If taxes don't pass, school districts and other public agencies could be faced with what they call the doomsday scenario. And what they mean by the doomsday scenario is that if things went to their worst possible extreme, the $330 per student would probably grow all the way up to about $679 because it's based on Prop 98 being suspended. And Prop 98 can be suspended by a 2/3 vote of the legislature. So what's that mean to us? Well, if we went to the doomsday or scorched earth scenario, that'd be a $9 million hole in the budget after all those good things have already occurred. So it's just something to keep in the back of your mind. Probably what it would look like if that did manifest itself, we'd see mid-year cuts. Likely most school districts, including ours, would declare a negative certification. Some districts that don't have cash reserves, either alternative liquidity, they'd run out of cash, it'd be taken over by the state, and, require state emergency apportionments. So hoping this doesn't occur, but I just thought I need to share it with the board because we're not out of the woods yet until a final state budget is adopted and also these revenue, the temporary tax issue is resolved. Either they're passed or some kind of alternative funding mechanism is substituted for them that we can count on an ongoing basis. So that's kind of the synopsis. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions relative to the May revise or unification or how any of these things actually affect our budget. Oh, and we do have a multi-year projection here as well that you might want to see, because what it shows you is our best case and our worst case scenarios. These do not include the provision of furlough days. They both include the cuts that the board made on March 8th. And I'm not talking about the notices, I'm talking about the formal cuts that the board adopted at that meeting. So I'll let Ms. Jate put that together, and I think she'll show you the best case scenario first. Maybe I can answer some questions while she's trying to find the
We can probably
spreadsheet.
entertain a couple of questions while we're saying this up, if there are any for Mr. Smith. Ms. Parker?
Well, Mike, I'll just make some comments right off the bat. And I think the first thing I'd like to do is quote School Services of California. I was so struck by the notice that they put out, the email that they sent out after the May revise, partially because they were so poetic. But also, they really have, they've been under pressure about where the dartboard is,
Right.
knowing that they don't know, really, and that everything is built on what they do for, as industry standard, this is what the districts are going to be doing.
I mean, there's a certain amount of irony when your guiding force is called a dartboard. So.
Yes, absolutely. So what they wrote right after the May revise was, California's public education system is on life support. If we must dismantle even more of the fragile remains of our once great system, we choose to do it later rather than sooner. And we is really School Services of California. It's not
Right.
school boards or in general. While we will continue to hear the voices of the prophets of doom, we choose not to have our education system die by our own hand this month. And I was very struck by that, and not least of which that it was this month. And I'm so hopeful. I appreciate what Brown presented in the May revise. I appreciate what happened with unification. We're at a time where, hanging on by our claws, maybe we wouldn't have to make the cuts that that go to the furlough days, for example. And yet, as we'll see, you look at the opposite extreme, and we could be just blasted with mid-year cuts. And so, I want to say that I feel it's really important that we recognize the hope of the current situation and the terror of what could happen if the May revise or some equivalent of the May revise does not get passed by the legislature.
Okay, so this is our nice segue into our first spreadsheet. So this is a multi-year projection. And as you can see, we have 11-12 because we always have to look at the current year and subsequent 2 years. And since we're dealing with the proposed budget year, that is our current year. So in this particular situation, and this is the best case scenario where you can see what the COLA, what the deficit is, and then you can see our ADA, and then how it translates to state aid, and then the other various and sundry revenue sources. And then as you move down into the expenditures, the two line items you want to look at that are significant is the first one is the net increase or decrease in fund balance. And remember, this reflects both the cuts that are made on March 8th, including the one-time cuts that shored up ending fund balance. So you can see that even though there's a structural deficit of 895,229, that probably would be worse, except we have one-time monies that are dropping to the bottom line. We're required to have a 3% reserve. That's the 3.5 million there. You can see under this scenario, we project to have about 1.3 million beyond that. Although you can see left unabated, what happens over time is that reserve actually goes down a little bit and then comes up. But this is all based on the fact that the May revised assumptions hold. So this is the very best, like what I call our utopian scenario. And I think I made that comment way back in January. You know, if the unification happens and flat funding, we could be in a position where, you know, we're in pretty good shape, especially relative to other districts. But now here's the risk, and this is the next slide. So in this situation where I showed you the $9 million hole, or the doomsday scenario, we have the same types of issues where you look at revenue expense, but if we go down to the structural deficit, which is our net increase or decrease in fund balance, so there you can see, once we get back over to it, you can see in that you can see in the first column there's about $9.9 million there. So, and then what you can see is that we burn through our reserve on that negative there on the bottom, the 7.702. We burnt through our 3.5 million plus the additional 1.5. So, and we're negative fund balance. Okay, and then you can see what happens. This is what's great about a multi-year projection. Whenever you get into an issue where you start getting to a negative fund balance, and if it's left unabated, you can see the compounding effect of doing nothing. And you can see by the following year, you'd be $16.86 million in the hole. If you did nothing, you'd be $24 million. So that's why it's always important to get out ahead of it and cut it off at the pass. This is hopefully a worst case scenario. Could we fall somewhere in between the two scenarios on this continuum? Absolutely. Hopefully we'll end up at the best case scenario, but there's always the risk because we don't know what's going to happen with the legislature and the governor's proposals over the next several months until the state budget is finally adopted.
Thank you, Mr. Smith. Ms. Lamone?
So just to understand this correctly, Mr. Smith, in utopia, we would be plus. We'd be okay. It'd be a great day in education. We would be able to not think of additional cuts. But we have to take Sacramento's word for it, and we also need to account the shift of mental health services.
That's not quantified there.
That's not quantified in any of these projections.
That's correct.
So I'm going to take a wild guess that utopia may not exist for the coming years in California, and the worst case is 9 million. Is this correct? Is my
That's correct.
That's correct. Okay.
And I would like to say that, you know, there are doomsday prophets out there that say it's not $679 per student, it's $1,000, which means 9 million would be even worse. But that's what we're hearing.